One of the strongest experiences I ever had with music was when I was a small child. Growing up in rural Alabama, my parents tended to listen to older country music. And I mean the older country music. The kind where the singer is telling a story while music plays in the background. Before anyone says that most music is a story with music playing in the background, I mean literally they're speaking the story, not singing it per se. The first song that I can remember is Old Rivers by Walter Brennan. The song spoke of an elderly farmer named Old Rivers. The title character is depicted as a hard-working and gentle farmer. While speaking to the young child, Brennan, Rivers spoke of his acceptance of a future death and his visions of heaven. He'd say, "One of these days, I'm going to climb that mountain, walk up there among the clouds, where the cotton's high and the corn's a-growing, and there ain't no fields to plow." This later translated into the young child growing older, having a farm of his own, and learning that Old Rivers has passed away. This gives the main character the opportunity to reflect back to his own mortality, at which he says he will one day climb that same mountain, and he says that he'll look across the fields and see that mule, Old Rivers, and me. It's a song that I still enjoy hearing from time to time, and again, it's probably the first song that I ever heard growing up that really did something to me, really clicked in my head. I'm full grown now, and my taste in music has changed quite a bit, but my fascination with music has not. And I have an interest in what music is able to do to human beings. It seems to be part of the fabric of our every being. The Greeks believed music was part of a well-rounded education. There was an understanding within the culture of music's very power. African cultures have used it as a communal activity, marking significant life events. The Hebrew and Christian religions even have a close tie with music. The book of Genesis speaks of music's beginning, and his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Genesis 4, verses 21 and 22. In these two verses, we see the beginnings of music, as it's thought that Tubal-Cain created some instruments out of brass and iron. The Jews used music to praise God in times of victory. After Pharaoh's army was swallowed by the Red Sea, the Israelites sang a song, Exodus 15, verse 1. Even the Psalms offered opportunities to direct songs to God in times of distress, joy, and even the most miserable of situations. In Christianity, music is a strong part of worship. Ephesians 5:19, Colossians 3:16 give commands for singing to be part of their worship. James 5 verse 13, the statement is asked, "Is any merry? Let him sing psalms." And these are just four cultures that are mentioned. When we speak of music's power on humanity, Elizabeth Margulis, PhD, stated, "There is no known human culture that lacks something that we would probably want to call music." And people have really powerful experiences to music. This helps us understand about music's influence in our everyday lives. If there is a culture that never experienced or needed music, we know nothing about it. And when you consider the age of the earth, that is a huge statement. And each of us recognizes, or maybe takes for granted, the power music has over us. We are often moved to joy or tears. We feel great happiness or sorrow. Or in some instances, we might be moved to aggression or action. And it should be no wonder to us, as the English word music is derived from the Greek Mousike, which is from the feminine musikos. Now you may ask, well, Milkman, why are you bringing up the fact that musikos is a feminine word? Well, the reason is that it refers to the art of the muses and points back to their work. In Greek mythology, these were the 9 daughters of Zeus and Memory. These were responsible for inspiring others in the various arts. For the Greeks, Mousike did not focus solely on music, but on the arts as a whole. And so the muses would inspire people to dance and to poetry and to music. Now, this is a video game channel, and we discuss video games. Music plays a vital role in gaming, because it's not just the scene itself, but the score that plays in the background that helps cement these battles, losses, victories, and everything in between into our memories. But what is it that makes music hold such a sway over us? Well, to come to this answer, we will do at least a 2-part series on the subject of music. We may add more to this later, but for now, I think 2 videos will suffice. The first video, the one we're in now, is going to cover really and truly what happens in our brains as we hear music. The second video, what we'll do is we'll kind of apply what we've learned and look at various scenes from a few video games where music has had such an influence in making the scene what it is to us. And as I stated a moment ago, all of this happens within the human brain. And we have to start with the dynamics of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Now, there is much debate as to whether or not there is a dominant side. Some say there is, some say there isn't. That's not our focus. We will focus about what we do know that occurs on both sides of the brain. And most of our early studies begin with people who have brain lesions, and they've lost the ability to process complex music or other aspects of it. As an example, stroke victims have experienced different difficulties depending on which side of the brain was affected by said stroke. Those who have damaged the left hemisphere often have speech difficulties. Those who have damaged the right hemisphere often have problems processing the sound of music. Over time, other studies have been conducted. They've helped us to better understand what our brains do when music is involved. We'll start with the left side of the brain, as it does do a little bit less, but that doesn't make it any less important. And so the temporal structures of music are often processed on the left side of the brain. These would include rhythm, meter, and tempo. And so the timing of the music is often kept on the left side, which makes sense because timing is more of an analytical process, and the left side is often involved in more of the analytical side of things. And so if you have the timing of 4/4, 3/4, 6/8, so on and so forth, the left side is the one that processes that. The left side also decodes the lyrics of the song, and this task is related to melody detection. As we just mentioned, you're keeping the lyrics in time with the music, and you can tell more often than not when the lyrics don't match the tempo. For instance, I believe I can find it, but there is a video where a System of a Down song is, I think it's a half step off, but even that half step makes the song so unnerving. Well, that's the left side of your brain that's screaming because you know where the lyrics belong in relationship to the song, but since it's just a little bit behind, well, that's what the left side of the brain does. And while it's not mentioned, this side is likely involved in decoding the meaning of said lyrics. This can better help us understand something that we'll discuss in a moment, and that's the emotion of a song. But the left side, again, the analytical side, what does he mean when he says this? Is he saying something extraordinarily profound, deep in meaning, in relation to maybe a relationship or a loss or the joy that a person feels? Or maybe the songwriter just loves larger posteriors and is a person of the truth. Well, the left side is involved in that. The right side of the brain is involved in a different set of processes. First thing that we know is that it processes the timbre or color of a song. And just to be very simple, the timbre is when you can tell different instruments one from another. You might be listening to an orchestral piece, and you can pick apart a trumpet from a violin, or maybe you can tell a xylophone from an oboe. You're able to pick up the emotions of a song. Is this song a happy tune, a sad one, or maybe something that is aggressive in nature? Slower songs are typically viewed as being sad. The same goes for songs that use minor chords. Major chords are typically associated with more happy songs. Even the sound of songs come into play here. For example, Black by Pearl Jam, one of my favorite songs. The song is about unrequited love. And as such, there are a number of things that help you understand this is a sad song. One, you can listen to the vocals of Eddie Vedder. Maybe not even paying attention to the lyrics, but as he's singing this, there is a solemn sorrow behind his voice that, as it progresses towards the end, you hear the wails, not of a man who's screaming, not of a man who is angry, but one who is frustrated as he sees others around him who have love, and yet he himself is desperately alone. But then you tune into the instruments themselves, and the song is played in such a way that even the instruments are depressed. Well, that's the right side of your brain picking those things apart to let you know, hey, this is a sad song. This also picks up the melody and harmony. We're often able to process which songs are which. Again, I can tell Black by Pearl Jam from Even Flow by the same band. We're also able to pick apart the correct pitch in a song with the right side of the brain. And it might seem to us that this would be something that'd be done more on the left, but it's actually done on the right. That as we are singing or playing an instrument, we know when an instrument is off tune. Just as an example, I went to a spring concert for a local school wanted to go watch the son of a friend of mine. My wife and I went, and during one of the songs, one of the students played a saxophone solo. And he ended up blowing a few sour notes. Now, that's not me coming down on him because he is far better at a saxophone than I am. But I could pick those instances where he just wasn't playing the right note. That's something that our right side does. It picks that correct pitch. Now, an interesting side note is that musicians seem to be more left-brained than right-brained, as there's more of an analytical process to making music. Some studies have shown that this might be due to musicians having increased blood flow to the left hemisphere, whereas non-musicians showed right hemisphere lateralization during harmony perceptions. But this isn't the only area that's involved in the processing of music. Our autonomic nervous system, the system that controls the heart rate, our breathing, and other aspects of our very lives, quite literally, plays an interesting role in music. There are some instances where songs might create a sense of unease, leading us to an increase in heart rate. You might think of an instance when a horror movie has a change in music. What sticks out in my mind is that famous scene from Jaws, where you have a swimmer going out to the water when you hear that famous da-dun. It starts out very slow at first, da-dun, and gradually the music speeds up, da-dun, da-dun, until it reaches somewhat of a feverish pitch, da-dun, 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 da-dun. This creates tension in the scene while we await the movie's shark strike. Our heart rate may be moving in time with the tuba's EF motif. Why do we feel such stress during that time? Well, that's the ANS at work. Music helps create that feeling within us. And going back to the concert I talked about, one of the songs that the band played was the introductory theme to Disney's Gravity Falls. The moment the band leader and some members started clapping to the opening beat, and the first few notes started playing, I felt a distinctive shiver shoot up my spine. Well, that would be the ANS at work. But that's not all. Remember how I mentioned the brain's hemispheres and how they process music? Let's break that down a little bit more by looking at two parts of the brain that are heavily involved in this work. There was a controversial documentary titled Alive Inside that premiered in 2014. The controversy lay in the lack of distinction between passive listening of music and active credentialed music therapy. As long as we note that the music therapy presented in this documentary, very different from the actual music therapy, I would recommend you watching it. It's a good movie, it's a good documentary. I will go ahead and warn you, you may cry a time or two. In this documentary, dementia and Alzheimer's patients are played music recommended by relatives. These were songs that were favorites of the patient. As they listen to this music, you see them becoming more lucid. It is almost as if the light in their eyes begins to return, and the floodgates of memory are reopened. What I like to think of is that one scene in Pixar's Coco. As Miguel sings Remember Me to Mama Coco, she simply says, "Papa?" And from there, she starts telling stories to the family of her father in music. And this is really the first instance where Mama Coco does anything in the movie, despite it being named after her. She evidently suffered from Alzheimer's, and hearing that song from her past, which her father wrote and performed for her many times as a child, reopened those floodgates. Well, how does that happen? How is it that someone who is suffering so hard from dementia and Alzheimer's can suddenly be brought back through music? Well, the answer is found in two parts of the brain that are working hand in hand to make this happen: the hippocampus and the amygdala. The hippocampus is the part of the brain responsible for your short-term memories and for turning them into long-term memories. We also learn about our environment through a process called spatial awareness. The amygdala is considered the emotional processing center of the brain. It can link your emotions to something else, your memories. Studies have shown increased activation of the two parts of the brain while listening to music. One side brings up old memories while shaping new ones during the process of listening to music, while the other processes the emotions of said memories with this music. So again, it's one of those instances. We'll go back to the song Black. You might be hearing that song Black, and you might start thinking about what might have been, what you may have missed out on, how things could have occurred, but they did not. Well, that's what the hippocampus and the amygdala does when you hear music. And this knowledge has been used to help stroke victims or those who have been or have suffered damage to the left side of the brain relearn how to speak. And so it could be said that the entire brain is involved in the act of listening to music. And this goes back to something we mentioned at the very beginning. There is a power in music. And this helps explain to us why no known civilization has ever been without it. Now, what we want to do in the next Pixelated Therapy video is to take this knowledge and apply it to music and video games. What I've done is I have chosen specifically a few games that have affected me, the music that I hear, and how they affected me as I played the game. I also talked to two friends of mine and got their opinions on the subject. So we're going to be discussing from Shadow of the Colossus, the first Dark Souls, and Lies of P, to show what or how music has affected us. And you can turn that around to how that same music has affected you. So music goes a long way into setting that scene, and even working with our emotions to create something that we have a hard time forgetting. Hey, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I would encourage you to like, subscribe. Maybe there's a certain song in your life that really has affected you. Let me know in the comment box below. I'd be glad to hear from you. As always, love one another, look out for one another, God bless you, and let's all game in good health. See you in the next video.